Hey everybody, who here likes some good old favorites? Well, this video, I'm so excited to bring it to you. I asked, I think it was last week on Instagram, it's all kind of running together actually, but I asked, what are your long-term favorites that you remember using way back when you started makeup and you continue to repurchase to this day? And I thought that question would really narrow down the responses because as we know, so many things get discontinued, some of them really quickly. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I feel like some brands just, it's there, it's gone, and it wasn't even put out as a limited edition thing. But there are some brands that just really pull stuff quick, and that bothers me. So what things do stand the test of time? What things can you actually remember using way back when you started makeup? And guys, I've had more responses to this question than probably anything I have ever asked online ever. More responses than when I mistook John Smith for Hercules on Instagram. No, seriously, just hundreds and hundreds of people weighing in on this one. So I went through all of these responses and I kept track of the ones that I was seeing over and over again. So if I'm not shouting out your name specifically for saying something, it's because the stuff in this video I'm talking about because many people called it out as something they've repurchased and still use today. So long-term favorites, that's what we're calling this. And on my list that I made, I noted the things that were like really, really common answers. And there's one thing on this list that was mentioned more than anything else, and maybe start thinking now what you think the most popular answer of anything was. It might surprise you. I'll tell you when we get there. But the first thing was Revlon Colorstay, and this was a very common answer. I have it here in the normal to dry. This was a fairly recent repurchase for me, actually. I have it in fresh beige. That is what I remember using back in the day, except way back when I definitely used to go for the combo to oily formula, and now I am normal to dry. And now it has a pump. Remember when it didn't used to have that? So I'm going to give myself a full pump here and just kind of dot it around, as I tend to do. And then we'll blend it out with a beauty blender, which there weren't a lot of like brushes, sponges, accessory products mentioned, but a beauty blender I did see more than a few times. And I'll just kind of pat this in. I do really like Revlon Colorstay, and I remember like way back then, it seemed like the most full coverage thing going, Now I think we have a little different opinion of what is full coverage, because we've seen some things come along that just can completely blank out the skin and totally give you really, really even coverage. So when I use Revlon Colorstay now, I see this more as a medium coverage. Maybe it's the difference in formula. Maybe the combo to oily is giving people more full coverage than this normal to dry is. But it's certainly capable of like evening things out overall. I feel happy with that. All right, so we got that all on there. Fresh beige continues to be a good shade match. And then for concealer, this one had a ton of responses, and it was mainly Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. Like this pretty much dominated that answer. People weren't really saying a shade. Some people said brightener. I'm going to go ahead and use my brightener shade, but I also have the shade Fair as well in terms of a skin tone color. And I'm just going to use this all over the face where I like to have a little extra brightness. I've used this so much lately, like I really have fallen back in love with this big time. And when I was doing my declutter, I mentioned it in that video, but I was really comparing so many things to the brightener because I have some different like click up concealer slash, is it a concealer, is it a highlighter kind of pen deals? Stuff that claims to be a brightener basically on the skin. And I felt like none of them really did as well and provided the coverage and the brightness that this one does. And I went kind of full on today. We're going for a very brightened under eye, but you can see it gives me really nice coverage. This also gets me thinking about my answer to this question, and for me I feel like Maybelline Instant Age Rewind and Revlon Colorstay came along a little bit later. Like I'd have to really think back to my high school or even junior high days about what I was using, and the only things that might be surviving still that I actually use today would have to be like CoverGirl eyeshadows, certain ones, and CoverGirl Cheekers blush. Like I think that was the first blush I started with and I still use it today. My foundation-y products, I remember a BB cream from CoverGirl, which I do have it today, but it's not like a constant favorite repurchase. purchase, and a couple of the different cream compacts from CoverGirl, the Aqua Smooth and then the black one and the rectangular compact. I think they're still making at least one of those, but it's not something I constantly go for. Okay, we have reached the most popular one. We are now to a powder step, and I was shocked at the amount of responses for Rimmel Stay Matte. I mean, I was seeing this over and over again. It was like a broken record. Everybody loves Rimmel Stay Matte powder, and apparently everybody loved it way back when too. I'm probably saying way back when a ton in this video. I have it here in the shade Sandstorm. It is a great powder. I mean, I've rediscovered it more recently, and something I kind of like about it is that when you dip into the Rimmel Stay Matte powder, you do pick some up, but it doesn't like overwhelm your brush. You know what I mean? It doesn't create a lot of fallout, and I think therefore people must like the look on the skin because it's making them matte, but it's not looking cakey, because you just don't pull a ton of powder off on your brush. It's definitely a powder, not like a powder foundation, you know what I mean? It's like a powder you set with, set the under eye with, set the T-zone with for me. And also it's kind of a nice little thing, like when you finish your look, if you still feel like you need a little either brightness or evenness, like right in this area here, you can always take some right at the end of your makeup look and kind of swipe it on there, and it seems to do something sort of magical at the tail end of everything. So congratulations, Rimmel Stay Matte. People loved you then and they love you now. Also guys, I noted that there were a lot of responses for Bare Minerals, and several of you said you like to use this and actually top off your foundation makeup with this. And since we already put on foundation, I guess that's our only choice on how to use this right now. But I've got the original foundation in medium beige. I need to get back to using mine a little more. I honestly haven't used it that much lately. But it sounds like there are a lot of people who this is still their holy grail, like foundation they want to wear all over their face at all times, so that's cool. I've tapped a little bit out here into my cap, and then I'm using my BK Beauty. This is the 105 brush. I really like this for powder foundation, although I'm kind of not relying on this as my only coverage today. It still applies powders really, really well, so I'm just kind of buffing that in over the top. We'll see if we get any extra coverage out of it. What I'm reaching for more these days, if I use Bare Minerals, I grab out my Bare Pro pressed powder and use it with this brush. But I haven't been using my loose minerals as much, but wow, I feel like that did kind of up my coverage a little. And it gives you that little bit of glow that you can't quite put your finger on, the original formula of this. Like I can always see just a hint more luminosity in my skin after I put that on. That's so cool. So many responses definitely for all of those initial steps. These next few certainly had more than a few responses, but not quite the volume of those first ones. And one was the Rimmel bronzer. A lot of people didn't give me a specific answer on whether it was the natural bronzer or like the Radiance Brick bronzer, but for me, natural bronzer does go a long way back. So that's the one I'll go ahead and use here, and I've got it in the shade Sunlight. This is one of the lighter, softer shades, and I'm going to use my e.l.f. complexion brush for this, and we'll see if we can get a little soft bronze going, maybe just a little. This is a real hint of color type of shade for me, but I still like it. I keep it around because look, it can contour me a little bit, and it looks nice. Never muddy. All right, got a little more life to the skin now, and for blush, love to see so many people mentioning CoverGirl Cheekers. A shade that was shouted out specifically several times was the soft sable color, so I'm going to use that today. This is kind of like a neutrally blush that does have a little shimmer in it. And so I'm just going to swirl that out here on the cheeks. Yeah, there's kind of a warmth to it. It sort of translates to being like a deep peach on the cheeks. And as it shears out, you see a little bit of shimmer. And then there's that like CoverGirl Instant Cheekbones blush that's sable, sophisticated sable, is it? And it kind of looks like it contains a color like this too. But oh yeah, you know I'm loving this. I'm loving busting out this color. Again, I hadn't used this specific one in a while. I've been talking about Brick Rose a lot here, just because I found that to be a dupe of NARS Dolce Vita, but this, that's a nice color. There are two things that won't be dead on in this video for the answers I got. One of them was MAC's Soft and Gentle Highlight. That was probably the only highlight. I mean, if I missed your response, I'm sorry, but I was pretty sure that was like the only highlight I was seeing. It's funny because for many of us, when we did start makeup, there weren't highlights coming out. You know, that wasn't really a thing so much. But MAC Soft and Gentle goes back a ways, and I don't still have mine, so I can't really throw that in. And also, I'm a little off on the mascara pick too. I'm still using something that got mentioned, but not one of the most mentioned. But anyways, Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray. We're gonna move on to that. I still feel like I'm getting some glow on the cheeks from that blush anyway. Lots and lots of fans of All Nighter out there. Let's use it. This has always been a setting spray that I feel like does really do its job. You don't notice a lot of like radiance coming from it immediately. I can definitely tell a difference between this, say, and the Neutrogena Radiant Setting Spray that I talked about in my favorites. But it can take down a little bit of a powdery appearance you might have, but the big effect from this, I think, is staying power. I usually do tend to see really good results all throughout the day into the night with staying power if I use All Nighter. It's not just like a gimmick thing. I think it really does work. For brows, the top mentioned brow thing is definitely Anastasia Brow Wiz. I was surprised to find this at like the bottom of my brow collection. I didn't even think I still had one. I have it here in medium brown. It's one of those pencils. It's a really skinny pencil on one end and a spoolie on the other. And I think it kind of started the trend of all these brands, drugstore and high-end, putting out skinny brow pencils, you know? It kind of surprises me that this one is still something many people are repurchasing to this day because there are so many lower cost options. So that answer kind of did surprise me. I do think maybe one difference between ABH Brow Wiz and so many others is that the pencil is a bit more firm, a little bit drier formula in there, and I think you can get a really soft, natural look with it. But people must just really hold some loyalty to a good brow pencil. If you found something that worked, maybe you found a shade that was just perfect for you in this line, you're not giving it up. I still can't get over how much glow Soft Sable gave my cheeks. I mean, I look like I might be wearing highlight even though I'm not. I knew it was shimmery, but not that shimmery. Okay, so I've got that on both eyes. Just gonna run my brush on through. And then I didn't really see this specifically mentioned, but the CoverGirl Clear Mascara, we'll just use that for old time's sake. I do remember having that back in the day. I tell that story of how I was at a friend's house back when I was a little kid, and she busted out some of this that her mom let her have, I guess. Started putting clear mascara on her lashes, and I was just like mind blown. This next answer really made my heart proud. Milani Eyeshadow Primer. Definitely saw a lot of people repurchasing this holy grail item, and I do love it. I just think it's the best go-to. Sometimes these days I will grab out my Tarte Shape Tape, this little stick primer. I kind of like how handy it is. You just like swipe it on and blend it out. But Milani Eyeshadow Primer is pretty darn easy to use too. It's just not quite as much like coverage coming over your lids. I'm liking this face so far, you guys. I can't really complain. On the topic of eyeshadows, several top answers. This was really fascinating. A lot of people saying Shimmering Sands, like this was your starter trio, and it was for me too. I know I had this in my earliest days. And you say you still repurchase it today. You know, there's got to be a reason why they are still making this stuff. Also, I saw more than a few mentions of the shade called Mink from CoverGirl, kind of a one shadow look type shade, and then a lot of mentions of these L'Oreal Infallible singles. So a lot of shimmer in these, like they're super duper pigmented. I think probably some of the most pigmented single shadows in the drugstore. I kind of feel like for this look I should throw it back to Shimmering Sands, since for me, out of all this stuff, this was kind of one of my things that I definitely bought a lot. And I also love the other two, but in terms of hitting pan, using up shades, making a repurchase on this is definitely one that was like that for me. So I'm going to go to the brownish shade and we'll just apply that to the crease. This will give us our full look. What's kind of nice about this palette, and I think the reason why so many people started with it, is that it's really hard to go wrong. If you do have a makeup beginner in your life, I would still say, like, start them out on Shimmering Sands, because it's got decent enough pigmentation to where you can see where you're putting stuff, you know? It's not like you've got to work that hard to make it show up, but at the same time, it never overpowers. It's not going to look like too much. It's going to be kind of a hard to screw up product. So I'm getting that brownie color all up in my crease, And kind of letting it rise above here too. And then I'll use this middle shade. Gosh, I remember using this color so much. In this day and age, I would use it kind of like a transition-y sort of color up to the brow, just kind of going on the edge of my darkest shade. But in the past, I think I wore it mainly like on the lid, but I would also highlight with it too. I am gonna highlight with this lightest shade. Put a little bit of that up there. Let's not get too frosty on the brow bone. And then we've got to use this shade. This is such a nice like highlight inner corner kind of color. We've got to let that come right around here. I love this. I love a good throwback. This is making me so happy today. I'm going to use the dark shade again, and we'll just pat that over the rest of the lid here. This would also be a good time to pull in the sponge tip for that if you wanted to. Sponge tips for any of the lid steps, really, just fine. Sometimes I think it'll give you an even more opaque color payoff than a brush might, actually. There's my hot take on that. We need to do another beauty hot takes video, don't we? I'm gonna try pulling in a smaller brush to the darkest brown. This is my little one from Profusion. It's the ES6. And just see if we can shape that even more. Now, all these shades do have shimmer, but they're definitely capable of being used in this crease manner. This shade has enough depth to really show up for you. And I think I'll go ahead with that same brush and take that color down below as some soft, sort of smudgy smokiness. Hard to call this look smoky because it is so light, but you know what I mean. And then we'll just lightly blend out our edges. Soft, easy, everyday glam. How easy was that? And it was just comforting too, you know? Guys, a very popular eyeliner that I saw mentioned was the Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Liners. Not a lot of people mentioning a specific shade, so I just grabbed out one that I had here handy. This is a color called Demolition. It's just a really dark brown. And I'm gonna take that along my lash line. They do have a nice glide, don't they? And definitely a nice like range of colors. If you still use this, in the comments section, let me know like what shade is your go-to. Do you just like zero the black one? I imagine that one would be pretty popular. I've actually gotten recently back into a few of the lip liners from Urban Decay. I'm just making this a really fine line. I'm getting it right in next to the lashes, and I'm even kind of tight lining a little bit, letting it come up under. Just kind of going for that naturally thickened lash line look. Top answers for mascara, definitely L'Oreal Voluminous. That would have to be, I think, the #1 that I saw, but closely followed by CoverGirl Lash Blast, and that was kind of split between people saying orange tube or green tube. So green tube for the clump crusher. But then I also did see some mentions for this one. This is the one I had on hand here, the Essence I Love Extreme Crazy Volume Mascara. This one had been an Emily Award winner years back. This is a fresh tube that I happen to have here, so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and use that today. But just know that a lot of people out there are still loving and using and repurchasing L'Oreal Voluminous, which I like the look of Voluminous on my lashes, but my only trouble with it is it's kind of heavy on my lashes and it seems to drop the curl pretty quick. If you don't have an issue with your lashes like just dropping straight on you, you may really like that one. Here we're going to use this Essence. See if we still like it as much as we used to. It's got like those little bristles right out to the very end, which does make it kind of user-friendly. I feel like my brush is kind of laying down a lot of product right now, so this is gonna be the kind of thing that gets a little bit better with time, like it's not at its prime. I talk about this a lot, but I do think mascaras, most of them, kind of need to get into their prime a little bit to work the best. Okay, going in with a second coat there, it's getting a little more dramatic. That's good. Hate tapping my nose with the mascara wand. As you can see, this wand is a little big. The bristles are super duper short and rubbery, but it's kind of a big bulky brush. Now we've gotten to lips where two answers really reign supreme. One of them was, yes, the Dr. Pepper Lip Smacker. This actually gives off quite a bit of nice natural looking color to the lips on its own, and also the Clinique Black Honey, which is kind of a sheer lipstick. I'm gonna put them both on and let you guys see what they both look like. In case you're not familiar with the effect you can get from the Dr. Pepper Lip Smacker, here goes. Again, my lips are not naturally very rosy, But look what this does. Effortless color, right? Don't you love that? And that scent that really isn't Dr. Pepper, but it's like Lip Smackers gave their Dr. Pepper scent an identity all its own. And it's like if I would smell that, I would say, yep, that's a Dr. Pepper lip smacker, but it's not really Dr. Pepper in real life. Okay, now for all the Black Honey fans out here, we'll throw that on too. So this looks like actually kind of black or dark red in the stick. And then here it is going on. It's got some shine. It's kind of tinted lip balmy. Man, I need to be wearing that more. Kind of reminds me of a deeper take on the Nivea Blackberry. You know, darker, a little bit more neutral in it, and just incredibly comfortable. That's a great product. So here's my look. There's my lashes, by the way, if you didn't get a great look at them. The length is really there. And the skin, I'm super happy with the skin. I don't think you can really miss with the Revlon Colorstay and the Instant Age Rewind combo. I think those are like a classic duo there. But then we put the Stay Matte on top, which I think set everything really nicely. Let's do that last little step and see if you can see any difference. See, I take my e.l.f. Small Tapered brush and the Rimmel Stay Matte and then just pop a little bit right in here. I swear something really cool happened. But we also have the Bare Minerals Original Foundation on top, which gave a little more coverage, a little more luminosity. Loving the Soft Sable Blush. We've got that light bronzer from Rimmel. The eye look could not be more classic and basic, but it's timeless. It's something you cannot miss with, and it's certainly a great thing to start out with. Brow Wiz in the brows, which so many of you repurchase. And yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the Clinique Black Honey for the remainder of the day. It matches my top kind of nicely. But thank you so much to everybody who participated in this, answered my question on Instagram. I need to do more videos where I pull you in over there because it's so much fun to look through and see your responses and try to like generate a look out of it all. But I wish you guys all a great day. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here, and I will see you again soon. Bye.